The sleek Council scout ship appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. It seemed to materialize from nowhere, a gleaming silver vessel against the black of space. Captain Ta stood frozen at the viewport of the International Space Station, his coffee mug suspended halfway to his lips. "Sir, you need to see this," he called over his shoulder, not taking his eyes off the alien craft. The rest of the crew floated quickly to join him. No one spoke. The alien ship hovered silently, its hull reflecting Earth's blue glow. It was beautiful and terrifying. "Are we receiving any transmissions?" asked Science Officer Lee, her voice barely above a whisper. Communications Officer Han shook his head. "Nothing on any frequency we can detect." Back on Earth, the world's governments scrambled into emergency sessions. Military forces went on high alert. Social media exploded with theories, fear, and excitement. For the first time in human history, people knew with certainty they were not alone. 3 days passed with the ship maintaining its position, silent and watching. Then, without warning, 3 smaller craft detached from the main vessel and began their descent toward Earth. They landed simultaneously in 3 locations: Washington, D.C., Beijing, and New Delhi. No shots were fired. No hostilities commenced. Instead, from each craft emerged beings that appeared surprisingly humanoid, tall, with iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to shift color in the light. Captain Tai and his crew watched the live broadcasts from the station, along with billions of humans around the world. The aliens spoke perfect English, Mandarin, and Hindi, introducing themselves as representatives of the Galactic Council, a confederation of species that governed this sector of the galaxy. "We have been observing your world for some time," their leader announced. "We believe Earth is ready for first contact." World leaders quickly organized a global summit in Geneva. Captain Tai, having witnessed first contact from space, was recalled to Earth to attend as a special advisor. The summit hall buzzed with tension as the alien representatives entered. Ambassador Hoon, the apparent leader, moved with fluid grace to the podium. Up close, the alien's skin had a subtle pattern, like scales so fine they were almost invisible. "Your species shows potential," declared Ambassador Hoon, surveying the assembled human delegates. "The Council will guide your development appropriately." Captain Tai felt a chill run through him. There was something in Hoon's tone, a parent speaking to a child who doesn't know better. President Kim of the United Nations stepped forward. "We welcome your friendship and knowledge exchange, but Earth is a sovereign planet. We would join any galactic community as equals." The Council delegates exchanged glances. Several made a chirping sound that the translation devices rendered as laughter. "Sovereignty is a concept primitive species cling to," Hoon explained, smiling condescendingly. "You'll outgrow such concerns under our guidance." Murmurs rippled through the human delegates. Captain Ta watched President Kim's face harden. "Perhaps we misunderstand each other," Kim said carefully. "On Earth, relationships between nations are built on mutual respect." Ambassador Hoon waved a 6-fingered hand dismissively. "Of course they are. Just as parent-child relationships are built on respect. The child respects the wisdom of the parent. The parent respects the potential of the child." In the days that followed, the Council representatives outlined their plans for Earth's integration. They spoke of technology transfers, cultural exchanges, and economic opportunities. But behind each proposal lay the same assumption: Earth would follow the Council's lead in all things. "They don't see us as equals," Captain Ta told the Emergency Security Council. "Every suggestion we make is dismissed as naive or primitive." General Bai nodded grimly. "Their technology is centuries beyond ours. They know we can't refuse them." "Can't we?" asked Dr. Yoon, the renowned physicist. "If their intentions are truly benevolent, they should respect our right to develop at our own pace." Meanwhile, Earth governments permitted the Council to establish a small outpost on the Moon as a gesture of goodwill. Captain Ta was assigned as human liaison, shuttling between Earth and the lunar base. At first, interactions remained tense but civil. Council scientists shared some basic technological insights, while carefully studying Earth's broadcasts, literature, and internet. They seemed particularly interested in human military history. "Your species is unusually aggressive," noted Council scientist Jun during one exchange. "Most species evolve beyond warfare before achieving spaceflight." "We're working on it," Captain Tay replied with a tight smile. The breaking point came 3 months after first contact. The Lunar Research Outpost, established by humans decades earlier, had been conducting routine scans of nearby space. The Council had not explicitly forbidden such activities, but had repeatedly suggested they were unnecessary. Captain Tai was heading back to Earth when the emergency signal blared through his shuttle. He swung the craft around just in time to see a beam of energy lance from a Council ship to the lunar outpost. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but no less devastating. The outpost, home to 37 scientists and engineers, was gone in an instant. "What happened?" he demanded, opening an emergency channel to the Council base. "Why did you fire on our facility?" Ambassador Hoon's face appeared on the view screen. "A regrettable incident. Your outpost was conducting unauthorized deep space scans that interfered with Council communications. Despite multiple warnings, they continued this aggressive action." "Warnings? What warnings?" Captain Taz's hands shook with rage. "Those were scientists, not soldiers." "We transmitted warnings on Council emergency frequencies," Hoon replied. "It is unfortunate your primitive systems were unable to receive them. We expect your government will take steps to prevent further provocations." Captain Tai stared in disbelief. "Provocations? You just killed 37 people." "An unfortunate incident," Hoon repeated, his expression unchanged. "We trust Earth will issue a formal apology for the actions that necessitated our defensive response." The communication ended, leaving Captain Tai alone in his shuttle, staring at the debris field that had once been his colleagues and friends. He sat in silence for a long moment, then opened a channel to Earth. "This is Captain Tai," he said, his voice steady despite the tears streaming down his face. "The Council has fired on Lunar Outpost 7. There are no survivors, and they expect us to apologize." On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Grief turned quickly to rage. In an emergency session of the UN, the Council representatives maintained their position. The humans had provoked the response through their primitive misunderstanding of galactic protocols. As Captain Ta looked out at their alien faces, showing no remorse for the lives they had taken, he understood with perfect clarity. Humanity had welcomed visitors, but found invaders instead. The emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council lasted 16 hours. No breaks, no media, no leaks. For the first time in history, representatives from every nation sat together with a single purpose: survival. "They killed 37 of our people and expected an apology," said President Kim, her voice tight with controlled rage. The images of the destroyed lunar base played on screens around the room. "This is not a misunderstanding. This is not cultural difference. This is a clear message about how they view us." General Jin, a small man with sharp eyes and graying temples, stood to address the assembly. "The Council species possess technology centuries beyond ours," he said, his voice even. "But they have shown us something crucial. Despite their advanced technology, they are arrogant and careless." He clicked a button, bringing up surveillance footage of Council members speaking among themselves, apparently unaware they were being recorded. "They don't see us as a threat," he continued, pointing to the footage. "That's their first mistake." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity was outmatched, but perhaps not outplayed. "We need time," said Dr. Yoon, head of Earth's Science Coalition, "and we need their technology." As if answering her wish, an aide hurried in with news. A small Council shuttle had crashed in the Pacific Ocean after apparent engine failure. Recovery teams were already moving to secure the wreckage. Over the next days, a plan formed. On the surface, Earth would play the part the Council expected: the chastened child, the primitive species learning its place. Meanwhile, in secret, humanity would prepare. 3 weeks after the lunar attack, Earth formally apologized for the misunderstanding that led to the necessary defensive action by Council forces. Ambassador Hoon accepted with the same condescending smile he always wore. Captain Tai, watching from the back of the room, had to clench his fists to keep from shaking with anger. "You played your part well," General Jin told him later. "The Council sees exactly what they expect to see: a frightened, submissive species." Beneath the surface, a different reality was taking shape. In a repurposed mineshaft deep under the Korean peninsula, Captain Todd watched in amazement as scientists disassembled components from the crashed Council shuttle. "Their propulsion system uses principles we theorized but couldn't implement," Dr. Yoon explained, pointing to a strange crystalline structure. "Our materials science wasn't advanced enough. But now that we can see how they solved the problem." Similar scenes played out in hidden facilities across the globe. Russian engineers worked on weapons systems. Japanese teams focused on communications technology. Brazilian scientists tackled the biological components of Council tech. Indian programmers reverse-engineered the alien computer systems. Progress came at a surprising pace. What had taken Council species centuries to develop, humanity adapted in months. The pressure of extinction proved a powerful motivator, and human ingenuity flourished in the face of the challenge. "It's not that we're smarter than them," explained Dr. Moon during a briefing with military leaders. "It's that we think differently." The Council evolved as cooperative herd species. Their technological development was methodical, building consensus at each step. She brought up comparative brain scans. Humans evolved as adaptable omnivores with tribal structures. We're hardwired for both cooperation and competition. We understand things like deception and guerrilla tactics. We've been perfecting both since before we invented writing. Admiral Sung, a stern woman with a reputation for brilliant naval strategy, now led the covert fleet production. Spacecraft assembly took place in sections, with no facility knowing the complete picture. Components moved through shipping channels disguised as industrial equipment. "We build nothing that looks like a weapon," she instructed. "Everything must appear to be civilian infrastructure if detected." 6 months into the silent preparation, Captain Ta visited the underwater facility, where the first prototype human Council hybrid vessel was being tested. The ship was small, designed for speed and stealth rather than power. "We've incorporated their stealth technology," the engineer explained. "They'll never expect us to have mastered it so quickly." Captain Tai ran his hand along the hull. "Does it work?" "Better than it did for them," came the proud reply. "We found 3 inefficiencies in their design. Corrected them all." Meanwhile, Earth's diplomats played their roles perfectly. They asked humble questions, expressed appropriate gratitude for Council guidance, and carefully cultivated the image of a species accepting its place in the galactic hierarchy. Council observers reported back that human resistance had been minimal after the initial shock. Integration was proceeding as expected with this primitive but promising species. A few noted the unusual speed with which humans adopted concepts, but attributed this to the simplicity of the ideas they were being taught. In a mountain training facility, special forces teams from a dozen nations trained together in simulated alien environments. They learned to move in low gravity, to fight in atmosphere mixes like those on Council ships, to use stolen Council weapons. "Their combat tactics are direct," the instructor explained. "Overwhelmed with superior firepower, they've never needed to be subtle." The soldiers practiced ambushes, hit and run attacks, and asymmetric warfare techniques developed over thousands of years of human conflict. They studied Council physiology, identifying vulnerabilities the aliens likely didn't know they had. Admiral Sung assembled her command team 9 months after the lunar attack. The covered fleet now numbered 50 vessels, small but lethal, incorporating the best of human ingenuity and Council technology. "We remain outgunned," she said frankly, "but not outmatched. Council ships are stronger, but our tactics will be better. They expect direct confrontation because that's all they know. We'll give them something else entirely. General Jin nodded. How soon can we move? 3 more months, she replied. We need the full element of surprise. In his quarters that night, Captain Ta looked at the photo of the lunar base crew, his friends who had died in that first attack. Soon, he thought. Soon we answer. In public, Earth continued its performance of compliance. President Kim attended council ceremonies with appropriate humility. Ambassador Hoon continued his condescending lessons about galactic civilization. In private, humanity prepared to show the galaxy what a truly dangerous species looked like when threatened. The council believes they're introducing us to the stars, Dr. Moon told the final strategy meeting. They don't realize we've been dreaming of this moment for generations. In every culture, every society, humans have imagined meeting aliens. She smiled grimly. And we've imagined fighting them, too. The silent preparation continued, counting down to the day when silence would turn to action. The anniversary of the lunar massacre arrived with perfect timing. Council representatives were conducting their standard monthly inspection of Earth's progress when the last pieces of Admiral Sung's plan fell into place. Captain Ta stood on the bridge of the Shadow Talon, the first human-built stealth vessel. From the outside, it appeared to be a standard transport ship carrying minerals from the moon. Inside, it housed weapons systems reverse-engineered from Council technology and improved by human engineers. All ships report ready, his communications officer whispered. The crew spoke in hushed tones despite knowing no Council monitoring could penetrate their new stealth systems. Confirm targets, Captain Tay ordered. His tactical officer brought up 3 locations on the main display: the Council's primary monitoring station in Earth orbit, their forward base on Mars, and their largest supply depot on Titan, one of Saturn's moons. Remember your training, Captain Ta told his crew. Remember why we fight. Everyone on the bridge touched the small memorial patch on their sleeves, an image of the destroyed lunar base. Across the solar system, 50 human ships waited in perfect silence. Each crew had trained for months for this single mission. Each ship carried technology the Council believed impossible for humans to master. Signal from Admiral Sung, the communications officer announced. Operation Righteous Response is go. Captain Ta took a deep breath. Engage stealth systems. Set course for primary target. The Shadow Talon's engines hummed to life, utilizing a hybrid propulsion system that left no detectable energy signature. Similar ships across the solar system began their silent approach to their targets. In Geneva, Ambassador Hoon was lecturing Earth's diplomatic corps on proper Council protocols when his communication device chimed. He frowned at the interruption, but excused himself to check the message. Is something wrong, Ambassador? Asked Foreign Minister Seo, noticing the alien's suddenly rigid posture. A minor technical issue, Hoon replied, his normally confident voice strained. Nothing of concern. But as he returned to his seat, 3 more alerts sounded in quick succession. The Council representatives began exchanging worried glances. What they weren't telling the human diplomats, they had just lost contact with their primary monitoring station. All attempts to re-establish communication have failed. Captain Tai's ship glided silently through space, approaching the massive Council monitoring station. Unlike human space stations, this structure had minimal defensive capabilities. The Council had never needed to defend themselves in this solar system. We are in position, reported the tactical officer. No indication they've detected us. Deploy boarding teams, Captain Tai ordered. 20 soldiers in specialized space armor launched from the Shadow Talon, crossing the void to the Council station. Using cutting tools designed specifically for Council hull materials, they created entry points at predetermined locations. Inside the station, alarms began to sound as atmosphere vented from multiple breaches. Council personnel rushed to emergency stations, following protocols for meteoric impacts. None of them suspected a deliberate attack. By the time they realized what was happening, human soldiers had already secured the command center. This station is now under Earth control, announced the strike team leader. Cooperate, and you will not be harmed. The council commander stared in shock at the human troops. Impossible, he whispered. You don't have this technology. You underestimated us, replied the strike team leader. A costly mistake. Similar scenes played out at the Mars Forward Base and the Titan Supply Depot. The human attack teams struck with precision and speed, utilizing detailed knowledge of Council systems to disable communications first, then weapons, then life support controls. Within 45 minutes, all 3 Council outposts were under human control. Not a single human casualty. Not a single Council member killed, though several were injured resisting capture. Admiral Sung stood on the bridge of her command ship, the Vindication. Reports from all strike teams confirmed complete success. Prepare the broadcast, she ordered. Her communications officer nodded, connecting to the captured Council communication relay. This would allow them to transmit directly to the Galactic Council's central communication network. Admiral Sung straightened her uniform and faced the camera. Her expression was not one of triumph, but of grim determination. Attention, Galactic Council. I am Admiral Sung of Earth. 6 months ago, your forces destroyed our lunar research outpost, killing 37 civilians. You called it an unfortunate incident and expected us to apologize. She paused, letting her words sink in. Today, we have captured 3 of your outposts in our solar system. Your personnel are unharmed and will be returned to you once we have established new terms for our relationship. She leaned forward slightly, her voice steady and clear. You mistook our patience for weakness. You confused our restraint for inability. You will not make these mistakes again. Earth is not your subject. We are not your children. We are your equals, and you will treat us as such, or you will find we can be more than just equals. We can be your worst nightmare. The transmission ended. Admiral Sung turned to her crew. Now we wait. The response came faster than anyone expected. The Council's High Chamber convened an emergency session within hours of Earth's strike. Supreme Commander Du of the Archithy, the Council's primary military species, slammed his clawed appendage on the table. Impossible. How could primitives master our technology so quickly? They had no space program beyond their own moon until we arrived. The evidence is undeniable, replied Science Minister Ban, her thin fingers manipulating data displays. They have not only adapted our technology, they have improved upon it. Our stealth systems on those outposts should have detected any approach. Could another Council species be helping them? Suggested a representative from the Commerce Guild. To what end? Snapped Commander Du. This is unprecedented. No species has ever resisted integration this way. Perhaps that is because we have never encountered a species quite like humans before, offered Elder Su, the oldest member of the Council. As reports continued to filter in, the truth became undeniable. Earth hadn't just attacked, they had won decisively, without a single human casualty. In orbit around Earth, the Council's diplomatic vessel prepared to depart with urgent speed. Ambassador Hoon, summoned back by the High Chamber, found himself escorted to his ship by stone-faced human security forces. This is a serious mistake, he told Foreign Minister Seo at the departure bay. The Council will not tolerate such aggression. Seo smiled thinly. We studied your history very carefully, Ambassador. The Council has never faced real resistance because you only approach worlds without the means to resist. You mistake compliance for consensus. She handed him a data drive. Our terms for continued relations. We suggest the Council consider them carefully. As his ship departed Earth orbit, Ambassador Hoon reviewed the human demands with growing disbelief. They weren't asking for technology or resources. They were demanding recognition as a sovereign power and equal member of the galactic community. The very concept was alien to Council thinking. Species earned their place through centuries of guided development. Humans were trying to leap the entire process in a single generation. Primitives, he muttered, but with less conviction than before, because despite everything, he couldn't deny one simple truth. The primitives had won. The news of Earth's successful strike against the Council spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Council authorities tried to control the information, describing the incident as a minor security breach that had been largely contained. But the truth could not be hidden for long. On the agricultural world of Velos, farmers gathered in secret to discuss what they had heard. "Is it true?" asked one, looking nervously over his shoulder. "Did the new species really capture 3 council bases?" "My cousin works in shipping," another replied. "She says the council pulled back all patrols in the Sol system. They're scared." Similar conversations happened on 1,000 worlds. Species that had lived under council guidance for generations suddenly saw something they had never witnessed before: the mighty council on the defensive. In the vast, gleaming chamber where the Galactic Council's leadership met, the mood was dark. Representatives from the 12 senior species sat around a circular table, their diverse physiologies united in concern. "This meeting will come to order," announced Elder Sue, the ancient Quillari whose species had helped found the Council millennia ago. "We face an unprecedented situation." Holographic displays showed the captured bases, and Admiral Sung's message played again for all to hear. Many council members shifted uncomfortably at her words. "You mistook our patience for weakness." Commander Park of the Arkethi military caste rose to speak, his scaled skin flushed red with anger, the bone ridges on his head fully extended in a display of aggression. "The answer is simple," he declared, sharp teeth flashing. "The humans must be exterminated. Their defiance threatens the natural order of galactic civilization. If we allow this rebellion to stand, other species will follow their example." Murmurs of agreement came from several military representatives. The Arkethi had served as the Council's enforcement arm for millennia, and they saw only one solution to any problem: overwhelming force. Ambassador Wu of the Lyrithi rose next. Her species was known for scientific achievement, their large eyes and delicate 6-fingered hands perfectly adapted for precision work. "Perhaps we've misunderstood the nature of intelligence," she suggested, her voice soft but carrying. "Look at the facts. The humans achieved in months what took us generations. They didn't just copy our technology, they improved it." She manipulated the holographic controls, showing analysis of the human stealth systems. "Our scientists confirmed their vessels were completely undetectable to our sensors. This represents an advancement over our own capabilities." Commander Park snorted in derision. "A lucky breakthrough. Nothing more." "Is it?" Ambassador Wu countered. "Or have we become so secure in our position that we've stopped innovating? When was the last time any council species made a significant technological leap?" Uncomfortable silence followed her question. The truth was, council technology had plateaued centuries ago. Small improvements came regularly, but revolutionary changes, those were rare. Elder Sue spoke again. "We have always believed that stable, guided development is the path to galactic harmony. Perhaps the human approach offers alternative insights. You can't be considering negotiating with these primitives." Commander Park slammed his fist on the table. "They must be crushed, immediately and completely." "And how do you propose we do that?" asked Trade Minister Han of the Mercantile Bovari. "Our forces in their system have been captured. If we send more ships, what's to prevent them from capturing those as well?" The debate raged for days. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the story of Earth continued to spread, growing with each telling. On some worlds, Earth became nearly mythical, the small planet that stood up to the mighty Council, and won. Far from the Council's central worlds, on planets that had been guided for generations, hope began to stir. Species that had accepted their subordinate roles now looked at their Council overseers with new eyes. On the mining world of Drathos, the native Valorians had spent 3 centuries extracting resources for the Council. They were considered a partially developed species, not yet ready for full galactic citizenship despite their natural intelligence. Delegate Min, one of the few Valorians permitted to travel off-world, called an urgent meeting of the planet's elders. They gathered in an ancient cave system, away from Council monitoring. "I've made contact with the humans," Min announced, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with excitement. "They're willing to share their knowledge with us." The elders gasped. Unauthorized technology transfer was strictly forbidden under Council law. "This is dangerous," warned Elder G, his skin dimming with worry. "If the Council discovers—" "The Council is distracted," Min interrupted. "They're arguing among themselves about how to handle Earth. This is our chance." She activated a small device, projecting images of human stealth technology. "The humans don't demand centuries of service in exchange for knowledge. They offer partnership. Why would they help us?" asked another elder suspiciously. "Because they understand what it means to be treated as lesser," Min replied. "We've endured the Council's guidance for centuries. They've shown us there's another way." Similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Species that had been classified as developing or partially integrated began secret communications with Earth. Some offered resources, others shared their own hidden technological advances, and all sought the same thing: a path to true independence. Back on Earth, Captain Ta found himself suddenly promoted to diplomatic liaison. His experiences with the Council made him uniquely qualified to understand their thinking. "Another request for contact," his assistant reported, handing him a secure tablet. "This one from the Meridians. They're an aquatic species, classified as pre-integration by the Council." Captain Ta sighed, running a hand through his hair. "That makes 15 different species this week. We can't possibly manage all these relationships." "They're desperate for allies," his assistant pointed out. "The Council has kept them isolated for generations." In a secure conference room, President Kim met with Earth's leadership to discuss the flood of alien contacts. "We never intended to become the center of a galactic rebellion," she said, studying the map showing all the species that had reached out to Earth. Admiral Sung raised an eyebrow. "Didn't we? We challenged the most powerful force in the galaxy. What did we expect would happen?" "We expected to defend our sovereignty," General Jin reminded them, "not to lead a revolution." "Perhaps those are the same thing," suggested Dr. Moon. "In a system where no one is allowed to be truly sovereign except the founding species, demanding equality is revolutionary." On the Council's central world, the division among leadership had become public knowledge. Citizens watched with shock as the normally unified Council fractured into competing factions. "The Arkethi delegation walked out of negotiations today," a news broadcaster reported. "Supreme Commander Park has called for immediate military action against Earth, while the Lirathi and Quillari delegations advocate for diplomatic solutions." In private chambers, representatives from worlds normally excluded from high-level discussions whispered about Earth's example. Some feared it, others admired it, but none could ignore it. If humans could do it, why not us? Became a dangerous question asked on world after world. A Valorian transport ship arrived in Earth orbit 30 days after the strike against the Council bases. Delegate Min stepped onto Earth soil, the first of her species to visit the planet. "My people have lived under Council rule for 3 centuries, she told the human delegation. "We watched you achieve in 1 year what we couldn't in 300. We don't want charity or protection. We want to learn how you did it." President Kim studied the alien visitor thoughtfully. "It wasn't technology that made the difference," she said finally. "It was believing we had the right to be free." Delegate Min's skin glowed brighter. "Then that is the most important lesson you can teach us." Across the galaxy, the balance of power had begun to shift in ways no one could have predicted when a single Council ship first appeared in Earth's orbit. 1 standard year after first contact, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council looked very different than it had before. The massive chamber with its soaring ceilings and ancient symbols of unity had always been arranged to reflect the hierarchy of galactic civilization. The founding species sat at the center, their allies in the middle rings, and the newer, developing species on the outer edges, when they were permitted to attend at all. Today, the seating had been rearranged into a single large circle. Every delegation sat at the same distance from the center. It was a small change that represented something much larger. Admiral Sung led the Earth delegation into the chamber. Her uniform was crisp and formal, but she had refused to wear the traditional robes of a new species petitioning the Council. Earth was not petitioning. Earth was negotiating. Behind her walked Captain Tay, now her chief advisor, and representatives from Earth's various regions and expertise areas. They moved with quiet confidence, neither arrogant nor submissive. Elder Sue of the Quilleri opened the session. "We gather today to formalize new relationships within our galactic community," he announced. His ancient voice carried easily through the hall. "The Treaty of Sol marks a new chapter in Council history." Ambassador Wu of the Lyrithi nodded in agreement. "For too long, we have confused uniformity with unity. The human example has shown us the strength that comes from embracing diversity of thought and approach." Commander Park of the Archithi sat stiffly in his seat. His faction had opposed the treaty to the end, but had been outvoted. The military caste was accustomed to giving orders, not adapting to new realities. Still, even the Archithi had eventually recognized the changing winds of galactic politics. A delegation from the Valorians sat nearby, officially present as observers. This alone was unprecedented. Never before had a developing species been permitted to witness treaty negotiations. Their representative, Delegate Min, caught Captain Taz's eye and nodded slightly. The alliance that had begun in secret was now stepping into the light. "The final draft has been reviewed by all parties," announced Elder Sue. "If there are no objections, we will proceed to signing." Admiral Sung stepped forward when Earth's turn came. She placed her hand on the treaty document, which would record her genetic signature as well as her thumbprint. "Earth accepts these terms and pledges to uphold the new principles of galactic cooperation," she stated formally. Then, as was tradition, she addressed the assembled council representatives directly. "1 year ago, our species met the wider galaxy for the first time," Admiral Sung began. "That meeting began with misunderstanding and tragedy. Today, we turn toward a better future." Her steady gaze swept the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from 100 worlds. "We come not to dominate, but to participate. Not to conquer, but to connect." However, her voice took on a steely edge. "We will never again permit the strong to prey upon the vulnerable. Whether that vulnerability comes from technological differences or simply from being new to the galactic community." A murmur ran through the assembly. Such direct speech was rare in council proceedings, where politeness often masked meaning. "Earth extends friendship to all species who wish to engage as equals. We offer our unique perspectives and abilities, and we welcome yours in return. The age of guidance is over. The age of collaboration has begun." She stepped back, having said exactly what she intended, no more and no less. The treaty signing continued, but something had shifted in the chamber. Every delegate knew they had witnessed a turning point in galactic history. The Treaty of Sol contained several revolutionary elements. It recognized all sentient species as sovereign entities with the right to develop at their own pace. It established protocols for technology sharing that did not require centuries of servitude. Most importantly, it created a new council structure where decisions would be made by consensus rather than dictated by the oldest or most powerful members. After the ceremony, the real work began. Earth established formal embassies on 12 worlds, including those of species formerly classified as developing. Trading agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges were planned. And throughout it all, humans demonstrated the adaptability that had so shocked the Council. On the ocean world of Meridi, human diplomats learned to communicate through color patterns and vibrations rather than sounds. On the high-gravity planet Doran, human engineers worked alongside local experts to develop new materials. On the gas giant Sailor, where the native species lived on floating islands in the upper atmosphere, human scientists studied atmospheric management techniques developed over thousands of years. 6 months after the Treaty of Sol, the first joint fleet exercises took place in neutral space. Ships from Earth, Valoria, and 3 other formerly subjugated worlds demonstrated their combined capabilities. The silent message was clear. The balance of power had shifted permanently. Captain Ta watched from the bridge of his ship as the combined fleet moved through complex maneuvers with perfect coordination. The Arcathy representatives are monitoring from Sector 4, his tactical officer reported. Let them watch, Captain Tay replied with a small smile. That's the point. The Valorian vessel Sunseeker pulled alongside the Shadow Talon. Captain Min, formerly Delegate Min, opened a communication channel. My crew is still getting used to the new propulsion systems, she said. Your pilots are learning faster than ours did, Captain Tai assured her. Remember, we had the advantage of desperation. You have the luxury of time. Thanks to Earth, she replied, her skin glowing with the colors of respect and friendship. On the Council's central world, in a private chamber reserved for the oldest and most respected members, a different kind of meeting took place. Elder Su had gathered the senior representatives from the founding species for a frank discussion. The galaxy has changed, he said simply. We must change with it. The humans have upset thousands of years of stable hierarchy, complained an elder from the Jurek species. How can we be sure this new system will function? Perhaps stability is not the highest virtue, suggested Elder Su. Perhaps growth requires some degree of change and even conflict. The human approach is chaotic. The Jurek's elder insisted. Yes, agreed Elder Su. And in 1 year of chaos, they achieved more technological advancement than some of our species have in centuries. Perhaps we have been too afraid of chaos. He moved to a window overlooking the capital city. The ancient buildings, unchanged for millennia, stood in silent testimony to the Council's resistance to change. In a galaxy of diverse life, underestimating any species, especially humans, was a mistake none could afford to make, he said quietly. But our greater mistake was underestimating ourselves. We became so comfortable in our ways that we stopped growing. A junior aide entered the chamber, bowing respectfully. Honored elders, the human diplomatic team requests a meeting to discuss the joint research initiative. Elder Su turned from the window. Tell them we look forward to it. And prepare the historical archives. I believe it is time we shared some of our earliest records. The restricted archives? Asked the aide in surprise. Yes, the humans have reminded us of something we once knew but chose to forget. Progress comes not from control, but from freedom. It is time we remembered our own beginnings. As the aide hurried away, Elder Su looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth continued its unlikely journey from isolated world to galactic power. And in its wake, a new order was forming, one built not on ancient hierarchies, but on the simple idea that every voice deserved to be heard. The galaxy would never be the same again. And perhaps, thought Elder Su, that was exactly what it needed. The end.